Hello, what is back? Welcome up. Today we are going to be doing our first 50 starting steps on Castile, which is an absolute powerhouse. One of the highest pops in the, all of Europe, and also just geographically in a very, very nice spot for several reasons. We are right in between two continents, which is very, very strong for plantations. We are close to to be able to go to the New World, so we have that advantage there, and we also have the very, very defensible kind of bridge between France and Iberia, and the fact that we have a very strong navy puts us in excellent shape. As far as content goes, Castile has some absolutely insane bonuses for both military, well, less insane for military, but for specifically economics. So coming in here, just looking at the first one, we have a very, very nice quality of life in monthly prosperity and pop migration speed. Very strong thing to have in the early game, and also frees up a lot of options because you kind of need at least like 10 to 15 net prosperity, and this really goes a long way in helping you achieve that, allowing you to free up your slots for stuff like your policies, stuff like your bureaucracy policy, instead of needing to go decentralized, which gives you decentralization in order to get your prosperity. You go centralized, so you get more centralization once you get banking. We have a little bit of army morale, a little bit of heavy ship power. You kind of have a few advances in terms of power for the Navy that are going to give you flat bonuses, but then you also, I think in 3 ages, have really strong units. We'll get to those in just a second. We have a little bit of army tradition, some colony stuff. Here is one of the bangers, is 10% tax efficiency. And keep that in mind, because tax efficiency is one of the strongest modifiers in the game, and we have 10% right here. But wait, there's more. In just a moment, we have a little bit of Navy morale. Tolerance of true faith isn't all that great a modifier, and then production efficiency into the late game is quite strong. We also get a little bit of manpower, which is kind of nice. But here, look at that. There's another 10% tax efficiency. Wowza. That's crazy. Very strong government reform. Also giving progress towards centralization and minus nobles power. Quite strong. We have a lot of really good reforms. We have multiple that are giving us a plus to centralization that really frees up options. It's nice to get these +1 government reforms that give you a little bit of goodies here. 10% crown power, 2.5% production efficiency. Quite strong. And what's this? Another 10% tax efficiency. So I do believe Castile gets the most tax efficiency in the entire game with that 30%. And max tax is also a really strong modifier, but you get more of it as time goes on. So as time goes on, you would rather just have more tax efficiency, I think. And this is just very, very, very strong. And so continuing on here, we do have a couple of unique privileges down here, which are going to be reasonably good. We have progress towards aristocracy on both of these, but the really good ones are the 2 that we have on the commoners. Pop joined Rebel Threshold +5, but we were getting 5 satisfaction, which is really nice. And also 5 satisfaction here, a little bit of pop promotion speed, quite strong. It does give you progress towards monthly subjects because you have a little bit of extra privileges for the peasants. It's maybe reasonable to be able to go serfdom, whereas you otherwise would not be able to, which will give you max tax, which synergizes with all the tax efficiency you get. Now that's your country bonuses, and Castilian will have a bunch of stuff that is also in your country bonuses, so you don't need to look at that as well. But Iberian has a bunch of other tasty goodies, and so there's some argument to specifically culture flipping to Castilian as other nations for these goodies, which is maybe a reason to look through these things. But you can see the prosperity is in here. I do believe the tax efficiency is in here, and so and also the production efficiency in the late game is in there. But Iberian, this is where we get our units. It allows the Tercio, which is going to be getting a pretty nice stat line boost in terms of units in the 4th age. And this is when combat power starts to increase for infantry. And so this is kind of the coming out party for infantry, where they are going to be getting really strong. We have the +20% or -20% morale damage taken, -20 or +10% morale damage done, and a little bit of initiative that goes a long way. Probably looking at mono tear show armies, which are going to be quite strong. We also have this, some of these government reforms that are free in here, like the minus trade maintenance, possible government reform. That's quite nice. Those types of reforms are extremely strong. We have Iberian tolerance, who nobody expects the Iberian tolerance. And then we have 10% max literacy. This is a major government reform, though, so I'm not sure if this is necessarily something you want to go for. And then a whole bunch of units, and the lieutenancy and viceroyalty, which are kind of insane. We'll get to those. But the units are going to be a couple of Crusader Knights. This is at a phase in the game where professionals just generally aren't that good on the current balance patch, but expecting to see professionals get a little bit better, at which point these like modest little bonuses will be nice. And then we have a bunch of units that are better for the the naval units, and this is quite strong. We have unique caravels. We have 3. We have an Age 1 caravel, which is really nice because this means you can start pushing maritime early. Although I think you're kind of in a little awkward position in your geography that maybe you don't want to do that immediately. And we have one in Age 2 and also in Age 3. And then in Ages 3 and 4, we also get, or 1 as well, with the Catalan Galley, we get a little bit of extra power. But then in Ages 3 and 4, we are going to have a considerably better heavy ship, and so we have this very nice power spike where we are strong in that age. 20% more cannons here, and also 20% more hull size on this one. And then we have we'll have a similar type of vibe here where we will have 33% more here, and then 33% more on the other stuff. So really power spiky in the 4th age as it regards to ships. And then the lieutenancy and the viceroyalty are just these insane buildings. So bailiffs you have to be building in your own kind of area. I forget if it's your region or your continent. I think it's your region, your home region. And this is an overseas bailiff, which is available only in urban areas, which is probably better than being available in rural areas. And it gives 25 proximity, and the viceroyalty gives 30 proximity, and this is just a very strong building. In theory, this might make it so that, or in theory, this ought to make it such that you don't actually want to give your colonies you don't want to give your colonies any land or have colonies in this way, because it's better for you to direct own it if you can get this level of proximity and have a core and this type of stuff. You could get like 50 control. You don't benefit from the population growth, the enormous population growth of colonies if you do this, and so that's maybe a reason to not do it like that, but doing a mix of the two is maybe quite sensible. And so this is a very strong building, and one that should be made use of. And incidentally, this is for any Iberian culture, so if you wanted to culture flip to Iberian, specifically like Navarranese or Navarranese. This is also really strong. Basque probably is overall the best culture. But anyways, we will get into playing as Castile here. Get that nice little flashbang. Alright, so let's take a look at our geographical position. Obviously, we talked about how we're on a peninsula, we're close to the New World. Also very important is we're close to Africa, in the North Africa. In terms of population, we have a very large population, and you notice it's all in the north. This is going to be a feature that is kind of a little bit awkward in Spain/Castile, because you, generally speaking, kind of want to move your capital to the south, although there will be eventually a lot of pops available here in North Africa if you choose that as an expansion spot. Your capital, you want a lot of pops. Geographically, you want it in the south. Population-wise, you are going to want it in the north, and it does create this odd sort of tension. To look at some of the terrain and other stuff here that we have going on, we have a lot of sparse land, and this is only going to have 25k pop capacity relative to 50k you get from grasslands. We also have a decent amount of woodlands, also 50k pop capacity, and so you have these kind of these zones that are going to be better oriented towards rural areas anyways in a lot of these sparse lands, and you have this 3-ish zones where you're going to have really good areas for urban centers in the south in Sevilla, where you have 100 population capacity off the farmlands, 50,000 off the grasslands, farmlands. Similar idea over here, kind of in central, Spain or Iberia, close to Toledo here, and also here in the north, close to the initial capital of Valladolid. Hopefully we got the pronunciations right. We also have plateaus in these kind of open zones up here, and this is one of the reasons why it is a little bit worse, I think, up here, because you have this negative proximity impact, and also this isn't very close to the coast. In order to push out to the coast, you are going to have these hills, and so you really have, with the hills, with the combination of woodland and hills, you have in a lot of areas these framing of kind of these clearing zones, and so you have one here, but this is going to be sparse land, as we kind of mentioned earlier, not necessarily going to be able to build up huge pops here, but a decent kind of urbanization here might be okay. You're going to have this here, but both these two zones in the north are far from the coast. And I do think you want to play navally oriented, so that means your most attractive capital is going to look like Sevilla, or something that, the Spaniards might get upset with me about, like having it in Tortosa. But with here in Sevilla, you will have access to the farmlands, and also you'll have access to something that's pretty good for Castile, which overall is going to be these areas of, rivers, and so you will have a nice river access. River accesses give you a lot of proximity impact, but also market access. One of the very few things that pushes market access is rivers in addition to roads, and so this is going to be a nice little vein for you to push through, and you also do have that in the northern capital. So a little bit of tension regarding whether you want the capital in the north or the south. I think it's probably north early game, and then eventual transition towards the south, which creates kind of awkward play pattern. Also notable in the south is that the province of Sevilla is very, very large, and so this is going to be very good when it comes to getting bonuses for production. Also, the province of Cordoba right next to it is quite large. Back when Dev province was a little bit better, deving both of these together I think was really strong. We also have Jaén is very, very big, and so I think it's still maybe viable to dev all these. This is, as far as Europe goes, very big grouping of locations per province. But taking a look at the resources, we see that we do have a little bit of silver. We have it in 2 locations, so that's kind of where we're at with premiums. As it relates to the province, there is cotton and silver here, so you will be able to produce jewelry and all the textiles. There's also wool in here for the one province up, or which will allow you to produce, again, all the textiles, which is quite nice. And then we kind of just look at our resources overall, and what we have is really, really good food resources. We have a ton of livestock, and we also have a ton of wool, and we will eventually get a plus 50% output bonus on wool, and so we're very pleased to have all this wool, so food will never be an issue. We have a kind of like a smattering of iron, but overall the big kind of thing that we like is that we have enormous amount of food to support a very large population, probably a little overkill on food, but this means you could urbanize over a lot of it. You do not need to hold back urbanizing the wheat or the legumes, the kind of less premium ones, and you probably you're gonna urbanize over some of the livestock, but you probably leave almost all of the wool rural if you can, to try and maximize production here. We also have a decent amount of wood in the north, but not as much in the south, so you are going to feel a little bit pressured in this regard, but there's a ton also over here, but really kind of there's this sharp divide where you're like, okay, we have a ton of wood versus we don't have a lot. It's kind of an interesting consideration as it relates to where you have your trade capital, because if you move Bourgeois down to the south, down to here, you will cut off actually a lot of your wood. It's kind of already cut off, to be honest, but you will cut off more of your wood from the Sevilla market, and so we do have kind of all that going on. Eventually, though, Sevilla will be able to navally gain access to lots of North Africa, and so I do think that if North Africa is your expansion spot, this certainly makes a lot of sense for a capital, and you can really push control to a lot of locations, especially where they have good harbor capacity, so you can eventually kind of come back into here, but you will have a hard time getting around these hills and mountains and this type of thing. So you've got some interesting things going off. It's not super straightforward, and you kind of have this north-south divide as it relates to how you're going to decide to play your nation, whether you're going to be in the north or the south. So we've opened up a lot of runs really focusing on centralization and this type of thing. I think that we're not going to focus too much of it in terms of what we're talking about, but doing stuff like revoking communal lands, making sure that building roads right is slot in at the very start, slotting in also embellish great works of art, faith, I think are all going to be features that we do in most runs, and then putting a cabinet action on push centralization, and then for most of these runs we are also putting in treasury rights, just all at the outset. These are going to be things that we do. We're also going to give a privilege over to the peasants so that they're not super upset because we did take away one of their things. I think that we don't really... Let's go represented in parliament. I think that maybe there's an argument that you can go serfdom super early on, but you have to like work for it. You have to deslot a bunch of peasant stuffs, and I think that pushing a little bit of free subjects is probably okay, and it just smooths everything out overall, and so we're going to be going for that, at least at the outset here. We're going to go represented in parliament, and just get that nice big peasant satisfaction equilibrium that we have going on there. And so big feature is we're going to be pushing centralization in terms of our cabinet action, our choices in parliament, and this type of stuff, but we won't cover it so much. But this is just know that this is going on in the background quite strongly. For our cabinet here, we are going to be changing the values. We're also going to strengthen government early on, but we'll switch this to stab relatively early. And then we're actually going to forego the nobility guy for the burger guy. There is a burger event that we would rather roll, I think, early on that allows us to push plutocracy. I think that we could kind of get started on pushing plutocracy a little bit via events and stuff like this straight away. I don't think we need the aristocracy to be able to win wars and this type of thing. And I think long term we're going to want plutocracy anyways, and be really focused on it, especially because now you are able to swap on over, if you would like, to a republic, but you have to get 95 plutocracy. Considering we're pushing stuff navally, a republic is going to look pretty attractive, because what we get as a kingdom in terms of laws that are going to be quite good for us is we get itinerant court. And we start out with itinerant court. A lot of countries don't, and this gives you 10% proximity cost through land. However, you get... Republic in general is going to have a lot more positive things going on, and it's going to have a lot more tax efficiency, and it's going to have 5% all proximity cost reduction, which is going to include overseas, and so this is going to be useful for us if we are pushing a lot of our proximity through the ocean, and so generally speaking, if you're more navally oriented, this makes it look more attractive. Also, perhaps worth pointing out that we get the Mesta Council. There will be an upgraded version of this, but we get 2.5% tax efficiency, 25% wool output. I believe it gets up to 5% tax efficiency, 50% wool output. Very, very strong there. We also do have unique here, pushing a little bit centralization, not the most insane law, but that is going to be for us. Unique also levy law, progress towards quality. I think that quality is actually not as good as quantity, so we might try and swap off of that at some point in time. And then I do think we start with one other, we start with this, which is a very, very nice all max tax, plus agenda for impact for nobility and crown power. This is maybe an argument for staying plutocracy early, but that is a very, very nice bonus to have early on, especially because we don't have any kids of age, so we're not going to be able to do as much with the crown. I do think that we will kind of open up, though, also by putting this guy in charge of the navy and parking the navy out here for generating a little bit of maritime, but the reason why we're putting him in charge is for that juicy plus 25% bonus on the crown, which will bring us above 25%, so we will get rid of this tax efficiency malice. We are making 63, our expenses are 58, and a huge chunk of that is forts. Now, we are, of course, going to decrease the fort maintenance, but we're also going to delete most of our forts. I think we'll keep one in Sevilla and one in the capital, and maybe one in Cordoba here. Alright, that's much better. We are now making a decent chunk before our trade gets in and gets going. As far as expenditures go, we have decided to mainly focus on the market in the north. We are going to eventually move the Bourgeois market over to Valladolid, which has its own kind of challenges because it starts to squeeze the Sevilla market, but also later on, if we move the Fos market down south to Marrakesh, what will end up happening is this will give us more breathing room in the Sevilla market. down in the south in the long term. So this is a thing that we want to do, but it's like 800 gold to move the market, so we'd rather get started on some stuff, building in some urban areas, some things that are going to be very profitable, building glass so that we can build marketplaces with a collapsed price in what will be the future market center. Do like building a little bit of glass in the market center, generally speaking. A couple of silver and a lot of wood. We're even building wood and markets in the south because the price is fully collapsed for that, and this will make things easier, even though you know, we do have the silver over here in the southern market, and we're not focused on the southern market. We do want to be able to build it for 33, throw up a bailiff there, and so that is going to be something we are just generally speaking interested in. In terms of our sliders, we are also going for a 0 diplo spend, at least right now. We will look to build the royal forest or garden for a couple extra diplomats, because we're not getting a lot of diplomats right now, but this will be fine for now. We might uptick this sometime in the near future, because we want to, right off the bat, build a spy network in Aragon. Main reason is we actually do have a claim there. So that means we can use a return CB on them, and that should be relatively cheap for us. We will get a war against Morocco early on via event. Other than that, we will probably make a claim on Granada sometime in the near-ish future. But for now, we'll focus on Aragon, and we'll let this just be break even on our diplomats. In the future, we will probably look to make good friends with France or something like this, and maybe Portugal, because we're planning on attacking Aragon. To that end, we are going to, for our possible rivals, add Aragon to the mix and add Tlemcen, and we will have our rivals kind of saturated here. We are also going to be, in terms of tech, it's pretty straightforward what you want to be going for most of the time here, but we will go for this. We will go for the monthly diplomat first. That way we don't necessarily need to spend much on the diplo slider, and then we're going to go into guilds, and by the time we research guilds, we should be getting pretty close to 42, at which point we will probably want to shift on over to the other tech tree for at least a little while, until we start getting close to institutions or we start getting subjects, at which point we will want the diplo cap and the institution growth, but that's going to be pretty good for us for now here. So we can take an unpause and see what things look like in terms of our market after a couple of adjustments from the trade. We're making some decent cash. I think that we will drop down into here and build a little bit of glass if we are not already having it, just to kind of smooth things out there. And this will be nice. We'll see some adjusting down for the trade value. And okay, 24 ducats a month, this is fine enough. And so this is where we will be, and waiting for our ability to get some claims here. So after our opening salvo, we are going to be having some burghers upgrading in the urban areas where we built some stuff, and we are also in the rural areas going to have laborers upgrading. I kind of wanted to kick that off just at the start, but we also had built a couple of sand pits because we wanted to get the price of sand down. The price of sand is already down here, so the sand pits were probably gratuitous or unnecessary, but the thing we're going to be shooting for now is going to be a combination of roads and bailiffs in particular. So we're going to start building a road over here. This will give us a better access to this urban area, which will be nice. And this improved access will mean that the entire urban area, all the buildings that are already here, are going to become more valuable to us by virtue of us increasing the proximity to increase the control. These roads will probably improve these two segments. If we take a look at how control is being propagated and the fact that we're adding 2 roads here, these will improve these 2 segments, I think, quite a bit, except for the proximity is already going downriver, so I guess we won't get too much improvement. In fact, let's actually cancel these roads, because we have a downstream river here. And so this is already effectively a modern road. And why don't we instead build a road from here on over to the silver, because we know that the silver is going to be heading through this route. And then this will make it so that hopefully we can get a little bit of proximity on over to the silver, which is going to be quite valuable. Otherwise we would build a bailiff, but I think the bailiff will outlive its use relatively early. We'll also be planning on building, kind of as our next expenditure, a bailiff here in the silver. Currently there's no proximity, it has 12 control, and so if we add 20 proximity proximity, the control will go up to 27, which will double the amount that we're getting from here. It's still expensive. We do have to wait for the wood to bring the price down, but we are going to be going for the bailiff, generally speaking here, where we are going to look to get this local proximity score. And also the bailiff will be connected via road to this urban area in Sevilla, and so this will make it so Sevilla will get not a lot of extra control, but a little bit of extra control, which is nice because there are a lot of buildings here, right? So to the extent that this is contributing to the tax base, not a whole lot, because there's not a lot of control. As we get a little bit of extra proximity, get a little bit of extra control, this will be valuable. And there's enough buildings here, right? There's enough buildings here that when we add proximity here, in terms of number of buildings that's worth, if we have 15 buildings here, we only need it to be cheaper than like 1/15 the price of a building, like worth of like increase. Like if we increase here, the proximity from 25 to 30, and we do it on 15 buildings, right, then that is effectively, you know, that 0.2, that 20% increase times the number of buildings. It's going to be effectively worth 3 buildings, which incidentally, a bailiff costs a little bit more than 3 buildings. Its base price is 200, and so maybe not 100% worth, but also we are getting proximity in on the silver and in on this location, and we can connect the road over here as well, which will give us kind of a touch to the silver on these other locations. And so the infrastructure is really, really valuable. Same idea over here, where we're not improving just this road area for silver at the end, but also everywhere along the route. And also Leon is going to get better access as a result of us building roads like this, I do believe, because the road from here to here will improve Leon's access in addition to improving the silver access. And so this is why we're focusing on this type of stuff. It improves not just the area we're looking to improve, the silver, but also all other areas downstream or along the way there. So lumber prices in Sevilla are a little bit sticky. When we look at what's going on, we see that the burghers are importing a little over 2 units of lumber. So if we are going to produce local lumber and look to put ourselves into surplus, we'll have to produce more than the burghers are importing. This isn't too hard a task though. So what we're going to do is we are going to look for lumber mills, and we will produce less lumber for lacking market access. For every amount of market access we lack, you produce 1% less output in buildings. Also less input, so it's not that the margins are getting worse, but this does mean that our lumber mills are going to be a little bit more valuable if placed next to the market center. And so what we're going to do is we are going to look to build these lumber centers. Normally we try and avoid building in places where we have clay, because this will be a little bit better for masonry. And so we will look here and we will see these are the 2 locations closest to the capital that do not have clay. There's no clay in this province. And also, I believe in this province, we also don't have clay. And so we will build 3 of these. And between the 3 of these, this should exceed what we have here in terms of the amount the burghers are importing, this 2.15. Each of these, I do believe, produces... Oh, I don't think they produce a full lumber. Okay, they do produce a full lumber. And so this should be in excess of the amount we're importing. And so this should be net positive. And then this way, we will be able to build the bailiff at full discount here, which is what we're looking to do here. Where we take a look here, the lumber price is a little bit more expensive, and so we could get this price down another, you know, to around 160 or 140 rather than 160. And then we will permanently, or not permanently, but for some time have a lumber surplus, and this lumber surplus will allow us to expand out the other RGOs at the same type of discounted price. We get an event for our legal code. Overall, I don't think that this is really that much of an upgrade. We are currently getting, a, clergy estate satisfaction equilibrium 5%, legislative efficiency, and monthly progress towards centralization. And we would be looking at noble estate satisfaction, efficiency of cabinet, and monthly progress towards centralization. But here we get +10 towards centralization. If we choose the other option, we move towards decentralization and get a little bit of stab. kind of a little bit of a trade-off, but I think we're just going to go with this, even though we don't like the new policy as much. It's just so cheap and a quicker way to get towards centralization here. That way we will be doing a little bit better, and also it's nice to have the law unlocked, even if we want to maybe swap it later. I think we do get a unique Castilian legal code even later that is going to be better than that anyways, so it's not really going to be too big a deal. We're also going to be pushing towards naval when we can with options. In general, we're going to want to push the naval if we're going to want to be moving the capital to Sevilla, but we don't want to move the capital to Sevilla right now because we don't have enough like coastline that we've captured from other areas to really make that naval propagation super worth, and we don't have too much set up here, so again, we're focused on the north. To that extent, we do get our first parliament, and we can see what we can maybe get. Dev the Interior would allow us to push towards naval by failing it intentionally, and also give us urban building costs minus 20%. We do have a little bit of a bank. It is nice to save a bank going into a parliament, so you can click more buttons, but I'm guessing that there's going to be enough laws that we want to change that us just going for support early on is going to be better. We do start off with a good distribution of power, and to be fair, we do also eventually want to be on itinerant court. Our administrative system is giving us minus 10% proximity cost. Is that new? I think that's a little bit of a new change. Central Council is normally what you often want to swap to. I don't remember this giving 10% proximity cost just right off the bat. Maybe we kind of just like skimmed over that. That's insane. That's insanely strong. So it looks like actually we don't really necessarily want to change too many laws or have any really high priority laws. So we'll have a little bit of a think for what we want out of our parliament, but it might be the case that we just want to push naval and get some cheaper buildings and something like this. Conduct a census is really nice for pop growth though, so some considerations here, but normally for most starts, you're going to be pushing for whatever gives you the most support so you can change as many laws as possible from the outset. Alright, I think we're going to go for the intentional fail on Dev the Interior for pushing this in addition to the urban building cost. Will be fairly nice at the open, and then we will take a look at what buttons we can click here. Lessen levy obligations. I was thinking that perhaps we wanted to ask for larger levies here because we are currently working on our CB for Aragon. They do have somewhat of an even force. We do want to have a much bigger force, especially because we deleted most of our forts, right? Just keeping a couple. We kept one here, and we kept a couple here, just to have a little bit of a wall against the south, and we don't have a bunch on the border with Aragon. Maybe a little bit of an oversight. I think that is probably good overall, though, and so was thinking that we maybe want to have some larger levies just overall, and we don't really have a good role here, except for going for lessened levy obligations. This is going to give us reduced levy obligations for nobles specifically, though, minus 50%, and this is going to give us parliament-approved levies plus 25%, and so our peasant levies and such would be increased to 125%, whereas our nobles would be reduced to 75%, and that's where most of our levies are coming from, is our peasants and our nobles. I think we do, if I recall correctly, have some others that are going to be non-nobles and peasants, but yeah, we have a couple clerics. That's really negligible, though, so it's going to be mainly nobles and peasants, but honestly, we're not really getting that many mailed knights, I don't think. At this juncture, I think we're going to be benefiting a lot more from the feudal levies. We see some also footman levies, specifically with the burghers, and those are going to be enhanced, and so overall it's probably net positive, and so we'll go for lessened levy obligations, and a big thing here is we're kind of clearing this out, so that we can see what's behind. If we have another good roll on the nobles, we'll go for larger levies. Don't really necessarily need a law change, and we can kind of get things going pretty quickly here with our ability to go after Aragon. So I think I do like that overall. I think that is going to increase our overall levies. We will just have fewer noble levies, but that's fine enough. And what we're going to do is we're actually not going to spend until the end of the parliament. That way we can accumulate a little bit more gold, get up to around 500, and just build in all the all the urban areas we have here. And then kind of our next expenditure after we build this bailiff down here, we're probably going to be looking to move the market from Bourgeois to Valladolid, because we will have, you know, a whole bunch of urban areas that we've enhanced a little bit. We will have our guys ready and promoting in a lot of our valuable things like the silver. We still need more laborers, so expanding silver won't do anything. And so the combination of moving the capital and or building a few more roads is going to be nice for us overall here with what we're doing. Alright, so we get a little bit of luck in getting Town Demands a seat in Cortez. We are going to grant the seat, giving us 25% support. We'll then go for, I think, communal values rather than humanist. Yeah, this will change us up to the top. Actually, let's see what this policy, what they want here. They want traditional law. Yeah, we definitely don't want that. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to go for a CB on Navarra, which is going to be nice for us. We'll ask for this so that we can get it ticking straight away, so we will be able to go off of Navarra onto Navarra with that. And then now we're up at 418 gold, so we can do our spending here. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at, hey, what resources are in this province? What can we build profitably? This is why we are building the Tailors Guilds, specifically in these areas where we have access to wool. And so we're going to be doing that. We're going to be building stuff like tools and also glass in the capital here, mainly because we are going to be pushing these industries or mainly because we want these in the market capital. But you can see here, instead of having to pay 33 each, we are only having to pay 26 each, and this is the main idea behind this. So we will be able to build 9 or so more buildings here, and we're going to build them all around here. And I think we'll even like add a touch in Sevilla, particularly we will have really nice ability to produce jewelry, because we have silver in the location. You can see even with the really poor market access that we have right now, or sorry, not poor market access, the poor control we have right now, the jewelry is still relatively profitable. So we can go for stuff like this. We just have to make sure that it is going to be the same type of discount. This is something about playing in two markets. Just because it's discounted in Bordeaux doesn't mean it's going to be discounted in Sevilla, and so we have to pay attention to that sort of thing. So we're starting to get into negative stab territory. Negative stab is really bad for a state satisfaction equilibrium, so we're actually going to increase our stab expenditure here. Not sure why this is sliders back up, but that's what we have going on in terms of a little bit of a budget adjustment. And then also following our parliament, we have mostly good satisfaction on our estates and also good legitimacy, and so we can afford to give out a few more of these. We do want to check, hey, is there anything that we are failing to max tax? And we see the burgers, we have more tax available on them if only we had more satisfaction for them. So we're going to look for a couple of burgers things to give out to them to make them a little bit happier. We do have silver, so coinage is a little bit attractive, but it's nice to have the monthly development kind of early on, so we will go with that. And we will go with another one as well here. I think we can't afford to add 2. I think we're going to go with this one here, the capital economy. To be fair, there's actually Aragon is stealing a couple of locations out from our markets that do have lumber, and so that is a reason for wanting to go for the additional market access. But I think we're going to go actually land of commerce here. We're going to take an eyeball of how we are in the satisfaction department. We're at 30%. I think we'll let it lie there, but what this will do is our tax will go up for these guys, and we can even add more later in order to increase our tax income there. So we're about break even after, you know, the increased stab investment, but this is going to help to get us off the negative, which incidentally, as we get rid of this, we will also be able to tax the burgers a little bit more as well. So we are going to deck on Navarra with our parliament-approved claims. It gives a little bit of extra war score cost, but we're also going to co-CB Portugal, so we will be able to peel stuff off of them for a little bit cheaper. We will raise the levies. We will look to group all the levies up. We have a ton of levies, and we will look to go after their armies first, and then after their armies have been kind of pushed around a little bit, we will look to siege down their areas. I do think what we're going to do is, right off the bat here, actually, the regulars in general are going to be a little bit of weak with this current patch, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to link everyone up, and then I think we're going to split our forces in half and have half go to deal with Navarra and then half go to deal with go to deal with Portugal, and so I think this will be good overall. Not sure why our leader is no longer in charge here, but we will put him in charge of one of these, or it looks like he's in charge of something. He's already leading Navy. Perfect. That's where we want him. That makes actually more sense. So we'll send these guys this way, and then we will send these guys this way, towards just looking out where he might be, and we'll look to gain some extra footing and then push in, or we'll just look to kind of siege the place that's on the way to the capital straight away. I'm not sure we will want to siege the capital or anything too crazy against Portugal, but that'll work for us. Nice to get finest infantry at the outset here for 5% extra infantry power. I do think we start with an infantry bonus, or it's a morale bonus, something like this. So this is a little bit of an event here where we will get the merino wool modifier on all of our locations. We want to do this because eventually we will get an improved wool, law/policy for this. So we'll say excellent news, even though it's giving us negative modifiers in the short term. I think we'll go for taking the prestige hit here, and we will move this army back to kind of free this up. We are sieging the capital here in Lisboa. I think that actually we have a big enough navy that we can go after them here. We'll just kind of checking here. They have 3 of these galleys, and I think that this is all, these are all transport levies, so those are not going to be too big a concern. And we have only 3 galleys. I think we might have more light ships. I think we just will prefer not to lose ships here, and so we will go for that instead. We'll merge these guys up and have them get rid of these guys. Kind of playing a little cat and mouse, trying to catch them, but we do have the capital here on Navarra, so we'll actually should just go for the war goal here. But with the capital there, we will be able to subjugate them, which is exactly what we want to go for. We do see a little bit of a revolt, and that probably suits us well, because I think that actually gives you a discount on what you are going to be experiencing in terms of pricing and antagonism on subjugation, and you will still get the country either way, because even if the revolt wins, you still get to keep it. Yikes. It went after Soria, but you can see a little bit of cat and mouse here is going on, where we have way bigger armies. We have them all split up after we've kind of reduced them down quite a bit, especially because occupation is going to decrease what they can reconscript up with the levies by a considerable amount. And so as it stands, we are way stronger than them, but they are still providing us with a little bit of a headache because they can just avoid us and kind of siege down these places, courtesy of us having no forts. But I do think it's worth it for us having no forts. It's just going to kind of affect our prosperity in a very, very negative way. To that end, I think what we're going to do is we're going to change our cabinet action off of strengthening government to recovery effort here, and look to kind of get that at least back to baseline. Very strong cabinet action. It also gives pop growth, so technically this is not even necessarily a bad thing, but we'll want to get that back into the positive there. So I think that we're just going to go administrative focus. I just think it's like clearly a lot better than the other ones. You can make some argument for the other ones in some cases, and in particular tolerance ideas to us is pretty attractive, considering I think the game plan is to flip Sunni, but we're going to go administrative focus here on our age focus. And then also, we have this negative stab. I think we're kind of okay eating it, but we want to swap off of feudal nobility, I think, onto something a little bit more attractive. And the kind of main ones are, we could either swap onto royal decree. We can also swap onto Privy Council, or plan to swap onto Privy Council. To be fair, we get a lot of kind of free centralization as Castile in a lot of different ways, and so this can help us get even more tax efficiency. I really do like Royal Decree at this point in the game, though, because we could use progress towards centralization to help us push it more, and Crown Power is pretty good, and so we're going to go with that as our kind of swap here, and that'll comfortably keep us above 25% Crown Power, in addition to eventually giving us much more of a trend towards centralization, allowing us to push it a bit more. For tech here, I think we're going to go into grant privilege cost. This is actually kind of an okay modifier early on. Overall, it's weak because you get your privileges in place and then you kind of don't worry about it. But maximum RGO size, we want food productions. Like, these are not necessarily super important early on, but I do want the max literacy for burghers for the extra development growth in urban areas. And then let's also go for the stab investment too, kind of coming in for these two, and then following that, the formal city rights. I don't think we're going to expand cities or towns super early, but by the time we're 9 techs in, this will probably be a time where we're starting to want to push these. Alright, so in this peace deal, we're going to take a big chunk out of Portugal. We're actually not going to take the market capital. This would allow us to take over the market relatively easy, but I'm not entirely sure that we want to do that anyways. We're trying to keep our population of Catholics relatively low if we do want to flip Sunni, and so we're going to be looking to release subjects, and instead what we're going to look to do is kind of semi-cut off the capital to make subsequent takings of their territory a little bit cheaper. We see that it generates a ton of antagonism with them, but really not a lot with other people because we have stacked up both maximum dip spending, and also we are using a cabinet action for getting reduced antagonism because we're improving Diplo rep, which of course does increase or decrease your antagonism. So I think we're going to go for this one on Portugal, also going for the ducats, and then what we are going to do is we are going to, well, we will piece these guys out first, and then we will create our subjects. We're going to go for war reparations and gold and just a simple subjugation. We're going to choose to vassalize them rather than making them a fief, because fiefdoms do integrate territory faster, and since they already have all their territory cord, we would rather have this for them, and so we're so happy for them that they became our subject. And then we will be able to release subjects, custom subject here, because this isn't a historic one, and we will be giving them this territory and making them a fiefdom. They will integrate it faster, and then we will do the same for over here, where I think we're much more likely to integrate this area sooner, and instead of once this guy integrates this, he's probably going very likely to dev province it, which is very, very nice on these big provinces that we have there. It's got marble, it's got wool, this type of thing, and it's also alongside a river, so, or it's not quite alongside a river, but it is kind of in an open clearing. There's this open land, and so the dev province here is going to be pretty nice in terms of giving us additional RGO levels, and so happy to leave this as a subject with one singular large province for an extended period of time, because it seems like if they have two provinces, they're much less likely to dev province, but if they have one, they tend to use the interaction a whole lot. And Portugal will finish up, of course, their civil war at their own leisure, but that's going to be it for us for that war, and we do have claims on Aragon now, so we could go after Aragon now if we wanted, which is a little bit appealing. I think what we're going to do is we're going to improve relations with Portugal, though. We're going to slide our Diplo spending back down, and we are going to get this back into changing towards centralization. But with some of this, we will improve relations with Portugal here. Look to not help to stave off a little bit of coalition, although they are quite upset with us. If we take a look at the antagonism map mode, it's not too bad. We will maybe want to improve relations with Aragon and maybe the Bank of Bardi as well, because they're kind of upset with us too. So we roll up our second parliament, and something that we want is additional levies, just to make this a lot smoother. We probably win this without additional levies, but this is something we're interested in, and so we waited for our parliament. We're also banked up a little bit of gold, just in case we roll a parliament where it is giving us a discount on something, and so something like expand mining operations, for example, for the discount, it would be nice to have saved money up, and in fact, it is rather attractive for us to go fund farming estates, for the additional support, so that we can go for this Aragon here, and then if we have enough to actually fully complete this, it'll be nice because we don't necessarily want to take the stab hit, so having additional support at the start, being able to push this is attractive. But we also see in here invest in increased naval infrastructure, which we want to push naval. To be fair, we can push naval quite easily with the cabinet action up past this 4 point, so going from 4 to 6 isn't as valuable as going from, let's say, 20 to 22, because we can't necessarily push past 20 without with just a cabinet action. But we would also get increased development. But the thing is, we would have to pass this, and so we might not get increased levies. I think we're just going to risky to get the bisky here and see about trying to pass this. And so let's go for this and see if we can get a decent looking parliament. We do see grant privilege, a noble patronage of the arts. We're super okay giving out this, so we will open up with that. And then aristocratic support, also more than happy to go for that. Containing banking is maybe something we don't really want to do, but if we do that, we might be able to get additional level of support, and so now we have to think whether we care more about this or the levies. We probably don't really need the levies, and can just pass this. Again, our laws are relatively good, otherwise we would be prioritizing that, and so this is probably our parliament that we're going to be having, just the increased naval infrastructure. Little bit of a... yeah, we don't want to fail because it'll push us towards land. It's not the end of the world, but I think that this is probably just going to be our parliament here. We see change the central council, change this, which is giving us proximity impact to to this, which is actually, to be fair, we're maybe okay with this. We just change it back. We want to go Marina Council anyways, so this isn't even the one that we really want to be having. And then this would allow us to push centralization a little bit more early. And then if this kind of lets us do our thing, I think that we like that. Okay, so we also did spend some legitimacy down. Legitimacy is a little bit more expensive during Parliament, but since it's already down, we probably also want to hand out some more estates. That way we can benefit more from the recovery here. And so we will take a look. We probably want more burger estates, because I do believe that we could use some satisfaction in that regard. And so we will come through and we will look. Market attraction is a little bit attractive, as it tends to be. I think we're going to go for the building or the trade capacity here will be kind of an immediate bonus here. And then control over the coinage, we do have 2 silvers. We are starting to expand those a little bit, and so that will be good. 2 is probably what we can afford in terms of our noble satisfaction. Actually, we're going to be getting 6 times 1.2 because of the improved recovery from Parliament, so we could probably afford to give out another privilege here. I think that we're going to go for expansion as zealotry, because we are going to maybe in the near future be fighting Morocco, although we probably want to maybe calm down just for the bubonic plague, not spread the plague around by, you know, having a bunch of armies march all over the place. But that one is going to be nice to have in, just overall in the kind of general sense, and is going to give us a little bit more satisfaction, give us a little bit more research speed. And so these are kind of the changes that we are going to be making, and then we will see... once this recovers up a little bit, we will be able to get a bigger click off the banking once they recover up to kind of their equilibrium max here. And so we will contain banking. Not super pleased to contain banking, but it's spreading to us and we should be able to get it just fine. And then we will see, we need another 10 support. We could go for this. I think our legal code is just way better, is it not? Yeah, we want that centralization trend. But we can lessen levy obligations here on the, what is it, the burgers specifically. And now we only need 2%, and so that should be pretty comfortable. Forestry ordinance we don't really want, but we don't mind progressing towards free subjects. So we'll ask for larger levies, go towards free subjects, and then we should be passing this parliament. We have a couple panic buttons in case it looks like we're not going to be passing it, in case we roll a bad event. But if we roll a bad event, we might just request additional taxes and then just let this parliament fail. But now we should have quite a bit more than that 33,000 we were looking at earlier if we go for our claims on the province. And then let's see how much we have. Yeah, we have... Do we need to wait a month? Surely we didn't have that much levies. Yeah, there's the 53,000. And so that'll be considerably more levies, allowing this war to be a lot more comfortable. So we will go for the war on Aragon here, which, incidentally, since it is a... our previous war was plus 25% war score cost. This one's going to be minus 25%. So we'll be able to take quite a lot more. And so we will have a go at them. Just bring our army up. Looks like they're still paying for way too many forts. This is kind of not the best start position for Aragon, but it looks like we also have a way in through Navarra just to go straight for the capital. I don't think we could subjugate them. I don't think it's anywhere near that in terms of cost. Yeah, we would need quite a bit more, but I think what we're going to go for is something like this, and then also a little bit to release out Catalonia so that we can do reconquest. And we're taking this because we do want this to be a new market, or we want to move the Barcelona market here, so we need to take Barcelona and this location, and then we'll release Barcelona as a subject. This is kind of a play pattern we've gone for before. The place where we have the claim on is here. I think we won't take it so that we can continue to abuse the CB if we are able to do that. We roll Ibn Battuta, and things are looking a little bit bad for our stab, because he does give you some goodies, but he also gives you plus or minus 20 stab, and so not exactly what we want. Cool little event though. And so now that we have this, I think we're just going to just split these guys into 2 armies and use one to just siege the capital straight away. We'll actually maybe come this way, and we'll use the other to play a little bit of zone, where we're just going to, hey, we can put Ibn Battuta in charge of this for now. He's gonna leave soon, but we could just make sure that we get have a guy available here so we don't get our places sieged down, and we will just conquer a little way towards there, and we do pass the parliament here. This is what we're looking for, looking to catch anyone trying to break past, and so having the 2 armies that are, generally speaking, not going to be able to be opposed is quite nice, because we can do something like this where we have one just kind of lazily siege while the other one just plays and tries to bop their armies. If we just were only able to have 1 army, which is what would be the case, I think, if we did not go for the increased levies, it would be a little bit more micro-intensive for us to play, but definitely a doable war. Alright, so here's the peace deal we're going for. We're going for Valencia so that we can release Valencia as a subject. Same idea for a Cagliari. And then we were thinking a little bit in terms of where we want to move the Barcelona market. So I don't think that Barcelona is a very good location for a market center. And so we want to move it. And the question is where do we want to move it? And super long term, there's this weird dead zone up here that kind of begs to be resolved. And I don't know the best way to resolve it. I think that maybe a market center in Nimes is the best way to do it, but also we were thinking of moving the market, over to here, to Tortosa, which is something we've done before, which I think is maybe a reasonable place, because this is the kind of base of a river complex, right, where it exits, and pushing upstream, you push a lot more market access, and so this was reasonable for like maximizing market access, and then we're also close on the coast to all these other areas in terms of pushing market access. But then I was kind of thinking, man, the Sevilla market just kind of gets shafted a little bit when we move this down, especially because we lose out on these top couple of lumbers, and okay, maybe you just send the lumber down and it's not that big a deal. And then we were thinking, hey, maybe this Leda location is actually a decent place for the capital or for our market, because we're on the other side of these hills and we're kind of in this open terrain area up here, whereas this is just mainly like thinking through the coast. And okay, we would have better market access down here where we have these flatlands and like farmlands, but maybe just the wider open area is more where we want the market capital. And I'm not entirely sure. We're actually going to take a little bit more of a think here, but we're either taking Tarragona or we're taking this with a connection here, and then we're releasing Catalonia out of Barcelona in terms of our strategy. But we're going to have a little more of a think because I'm still not sure about it, but I think, well, actually, I think we're going to take this peace deal. Not because I'm sure whether or not it's better, but just because I want to try out having the market center in Leda here. And so we will take that, a bunch of gold and war reparations as well. And then kind of just in time for Christmas. And by Christmas, I of course mean the Black Death. We will look to sit tight during the Black Death and just kind of keep our troops not moving around too much. Ooh, looks like we will need to transport our troops. Womp womp. So that will work for us. But we will just be releasing these guys as well. Historical subject here, since they don't need any to integrate anything, we're just going to release them as vassals. We're going to come here, release this guy as a vassal, and then here we need to save up for 1 month in order to move the market capital from Barcelona to here. We can't control or keep control of Leda and release the historic subject, which is a little bit unfortunate. We also do have a civil war. Probably should not have demobilized the army, actually, in retrospect, knowing that we knew that that was coming, but we still have a big chunk of levies, more than they will, so let's raise all the levies, and this will give us a whole bunch more satisfaction to the nobles. While it will kind of ravage our territory, that's well and fine enough, but well, actually, now we're at war, so we can't release this anyways, but we can move the market capital, so let's do that as well. We'll go to markets, we'll click on this one, we'll right-click the Barcelona market, and then we will click relocate, and then we will relocate it to Leda here. Can we not? Why not? It's urban. Do we not have enough money? Are we too poor? What's going on here? We want to relocate the Barcelona market, man. Do we misclick on the market? Barcelona. Relocate market. I guess they only want us to relocate this. We also relocated the market to Valladolid, and then also we do have, we did have some more roads coming in, which is just improving our proximity. Obviously, you can't see the total proximity because the rev, but that's kind of what we got going on. And so we'll cook up and get rid of this rev. It should be fairly straightforward because they will not have as many troops as us unless they are supported by a foreign army, which they are not. Incidentally, the rev is actually kind of nice to some extent because it really bumps up our satisfaction, so we use that opportunity to hand out a bunch more privileges to our estates. We do manage to get some hospitals down for the Black Death kind of before it's too late, but maybe a little bit late on these. I think, we really like research progress, but we really don't like taking huge stab hits. But you can see here, the extra resistance will diminish the presence, kind of basically as late as hospitals can be useful here, but we are finishing a bunch of hospitals in our high pop areas, also down here in Sevilla. A little bit inconvenient on the timing regarding the Black Plague, and we've also segregated the sick, which is going to be better considering we do not have access to incense in terms of what our actions go. But I think we might do, I think we might go for a sponsor mass forgiveness. It's going to cost us a little bit more, but it's going to give us some stab, and stab's kind of a little bit of a struggle for us right now, so we're going to go with that. It will give us a ticking cost, but I think in theory, if you're playing really tight, the issue for sponsor mass forgiveness is we get paying for clerical services, and this scales with your income and your size and this type of thing. I'm pretty sure right before the Black Death ends, you're supposed to click this button, and then it's just kind of 12 free stab, and you don't really have to pay upkeep, so that is something that is worth noting. But with how we're playing, we're not necessarily playing perfect in a lot of spots, and so we're just going to go for the little more convenient one, and also the way things probably should be in terms of game mechanics. You probably should have to pay a little bit extra here, so we will have that, I believe, as an other expense. And here you can see we're paying 12 ducats a month for this, which is not too bad. We'll also make sure that we're not maintaining the forts, of course. So we don't get the event for the war with Morocco in terms of kind of the flavor event, but that's okay. We fabricated a claim on Granada, and then we just co-belligerated Morocco. And the reason we did it like this is because with piecing out, Granada will be the war leader, and so we can just ask them for whatever, but we could take a bunch of Morocco's stuff. And so once we fully occupy Granada, we'll be able to take what we want off of Morocco, probably looking to take this stuff, and then since they're co-belligerated, it's going to be the same price anyways, and so this will work out pretty well for us in terms of being able to take what we want while having a really easy war, because we are patrolling the coast, looking to deny any sort of landing. Our navy is stronger, and we will just have to deal with only Granada and their small army with our troops, and so this should be fairly straightforward for us. We're just kind of chasing them down with half of our army, and with the other half of our army, we are just looking to siege down the capital, this type of thing. So as this guy goes around, we will chase after him, and in this way we also get to preserve a lot of pops. We don't have to have a lot of troops die in this war senselessly in order to get some stuff off of Morocco, who is what we want. We want to release some subjects like off of Morocco, much in how we did the same way off of Aragon. That way, like Aragon, we will be able to go for little bit of extra CB. So our subject made this CB, Valencia made this CB based on their claims, and this is going to give us a discount on the war, and so this is what we want on Morocco in the future, because currently we do not have a discount on the war. We have, I think it's plus 25% or something like this for religious war, and so we're just setting ourselves up for a future war with Morocco, really. So we have just generally been giving out a whole ton of privileges, looking to kind of increase our satisfaction equilibrium in a lot of spots, and as you can see, it's actually quite high. So I think this is going to be the first parliament where we go for request additional taxes, which will really crank up the amount of money we're making, double income for, you know, 1/5 of the time, because parliament's every 5 years, and we get this for a single extra year. That's still a pretty nice come up, especially if we are able to push further on these. A lot of these are trending now down towards 50%, so if we were to give out more privileges to the commoners, we would be able to extract more money from them, and same with the nobility here. We actually even want to give out nobility controlled serfdom. The thing is I think we want to make sure we get full use out of this trend, and so we're probably going to leave that alone, but that is something we're interested in, just generally speaking. And so this will allow us to tax up at like a higher bracket towards our max tax, and so the combination of the increased max tax and also us giving out privileges. So for our peace deal, which Morocco has zero say in the matter, we are going to go for this location here, which we will use to release Sousse. We are going to go for this location, which we will use to release Fez, and then this location to give them access to the ocean so we can help them out if they need it. And then we are going to take this location because currently we don't have the sound tool unlock. I do believe you need both sides of the strait in order to get this, and I do think this is the other side of the strait. I think it's these two locations you need. Not 100% sure, but for going for that, that should be pretty good. And then we'll just get a cheeky subjugation on Granada. No gold here, just looking to barely slip it in. We could, in theory, wait for Granada to get enough war exhaustion that we would get 100% war score, but I think this is unnecessary. We kind of want to put our armies down and get this war over with, and peeling more gold off of Granada and causing them a whole bunch of negative prosperity is probably pretty marginal at best. So we will go for this, and we will get ourselves a vassal, we will improve relations with them, and we will be releasing the subjects that we had mentioned here. So we will create subject. Historical subject here is Fez, and they will have claims over all of this, and so that is going to help out. We're going to release them as a fiefdom because we are going to feed them other territory, like, for example, the very immediate location here, and then we are also going to release these guys as a vassal. So we'll create subject, release historical subject, and these, the Sousse will have claims on all of this, and so they'll work to make claims. They will be a little bit slow at making them because they have to use spy network, and their spy network won't be very good at Morocco, but we'll get it eventually, much like we do already have a claim on Aragon here, which we will maybe go for, but I don't think we want to rumble with England. Looks like England doesn't help them, but in a lot of cases when there's an X mark, they have enough, favors that they call them in anyways, or they somehow call them in post-war anyways. And so what we'll probably do, yeah, England doesn't want to do it because they're in the middle of a rebellion. We're probably going to offer alliance to England, and then with that, okay, we might have to fight France. That's not the biggest deal, but then we can start generating favors on them. And I think that we want to accept their culture anyways, and maybe look for a royal marriage. Probably look to play the Diplo game between Naples and England, just generally speaking, where if we're getting a personal union, we'll try and get it on them and use claims and various things to unite Iberia rather than a personal union, because I think we want to take this a little bit more directly and a little bit more quickly, and the personal union route takes a little bit more time, and so I think I like this route. Also, we don't get too much antagonism, because the antagonism is more centered around kind of the cultures on Iberia and this type of thing, and Aragon, going after Aragon in Portugal doesn't cause a lot of antagonism out of here, and going after North Africa is only kind of giving us antagonism there, so we're keeping it relatively condensed here rather than branching out. And so we wouldn't want to go fight England because then we'd get a bunch of antagonism, or Naples, and so probably look to play more diplomatically with them. I think we'll probably improve relations with Tunis, just look to keep them out of our hair for some time, and probably Tlemcen too, and maybe even with Morocco, just to reduce the antagonism on like kind of a short-term basis. Pretty good with Portugal. We did improve relations with them, so we're not going to fight them for at least some time. Probably mainly focus on Aragon here, if anyone. For a while now, post, Black Death, we have been a little bit focused on infrastructure more than anything else. You can see that we have bailiffs, or that's what the islands of proximity are from. We built a cheeky little bailiff here where we can connect it via road to these two urban locations to give them a little bit of proximity, giving them 3 more control. It's a little bit marginal, but I do think it's worth it, and mainly because the bailiff promotes up soldiers. And so our issue, generally speaking, following the Black Death was having enough qualified pops, and we're kind of out from that now, but we did have a lot of locations where there were not enough burghers to employ up, so if there aren't enough burghers, what's the point in building the burgher buildings? They're not going to be useful to you. And then same idea with laborers, where, okay, we have silver mine, but the silver mine is not fully employed, so building additional levels there is going to be pretty marginal, just kind of building them ahead of time just because silver's so good. But that was the case with a lot of our locations here, but we are seeing that a lot of this is starting to get better, and so we can start investing in stuff other than infrastructure. But we did improve proximity quite a little bit here, also building roads, because the roads do not employ anyone, and so that is going to be useful. Now we're making a little bit of a push for books. We do want to get libraries, and we probably need to be a little bit more proactive with building libraries, specifically in market capitals. And the reason for this is because we are trying to pull institutions, and we are doing an okay job of it right now. So we're going to have banking and professional armies relatively early because of the trade that we are doing with the Genoa market, which is allowing us to pull these. We specifically have these trades in, importing a little bit of rice, which makes our pops a little happier anyways. Marble, just because it's so cheap in Genoa, and gold, because we both want gold, and it is available in Genoa, which is, of course, how we were able to build our royal garden. We're eventually moving the capital, so we'll have to rebuild it once that happens, but it's not that big a deal. Also, in particular, it is better to get the institutions here in the north, because we have more pops, and embracing the institutions is based on population. And so that is going to be, it's better for us to pull it here rather than to Sevilla, where there's less population, because the embracement is based on how many pops you have, and you need to have at least 20% kind of exposed here. Also, regarding the Black Death, we did have quite a few people die. If we hover here, we can see just how many. We had 2.1 million die to Black Death, which is quite uncomfortable. We also have 600k die to smallpox, so that's no small amount, but roughly 40%. Kind of a medium performance here for us for the Black Death, and I think now we're going to be ecoing up. We might fight Aragon a little bit, but I think that we're going to try and get England to break their alliance with Aragon first before we have a little bit of a go at them, so we'll be a little bit quiet for a few years. So for technology, we are going to go for the institution growth now that we are actually spreading it. We want to make sure that we do get this maximum RGO size in rural before the end of the age, but it's not really that high a priority. Next up, we're going to be going for the proximity cost, but a big part of that is we're kind of wanting subject opinion and subject loyalty, considering we have disloyal subjects and we don't want to pay more, you know, in terms of our Diplo side, really. So that is one way we can kind of resolve that. And after that, I think what we're going to do is take a little bit of a line towards the legislative efficiency here, which will make us take less antagonism, but I'm not fully convinced on it, so why don't we pull this off for now and reconsider once we get to that point. We'll burn that bridge when we get to it. Getting our first bits of urbanization going. Here we want to get someplace close to the capital. We're probably going to build paper out of here, and we did want that little... We eventually want all cities alongside this route for Pound Law Canals to help propagate control, although it's going to be less important if we're moving the market away from here, because Pound Law Canals are for proximity. Proximity helps with control. It doesn't help with market access. But okay, having a city right next to, having every single place location next to the market capital urbanized is a reasonable enough strategy, so we're going for this one. We're going for this one. It is building over fiber crops. There is a fiber crop building though, and so that's probably, it's not essential, absolutely, and like in a definitive way that we build or we keep all of our fiber crops open, especially because cattle goes into this. It's one of the few that's not like only wood. Cattle goes into this, and we have a ton of cattle, so this is not so much of an issue. But what we want is we want to build paper out of a place that has fiber crops in the province, and this is like our only fiber crop province anywhere near the capital. And then up here we are taking a look, and we see that, hey, this has got relatively flat terrain, so it's going to be okay for development, a little bit better for development, and it's mainly the idea that it's in the same location as the silvers, so we're going to build jewelry out of here. And the coal's going to be nice as well, because we're going to be able to build weaponsmith out of here as well and get the 10% production efficiency bonus on each of these. But the main idea is that we are kind of getting throttled by either the fact that we are getting close to cap on the industries we want in the locations, so like this, the fine cloth is capped, although we are going to be building now in this location spinners guilds instead, or we are getting capped in terms of not having enough in these locations burghers to be able to employ up. And so this is the main reason we are starting the urbanization, and we're building urbanization in the north mainly because there's more pops here, and also it's closer to the capital, and we want the higher tier pops closer to the capital because there's more control, which means that you're going to have less of a crown power malice. And so this will also help out the crown power a little bit here as well, although we're comfortably over 25%, so it's not as important. So we're going to get a couple of law changes this parliament. We have dev the interior. We've banked up 1.5k, so we're going to spend that all now. We're going to intentionally fail this parliament so that we can move +2 towards naval, so we'll be at 33, and we're going to apply for some law changes. Central Council, we were wanting to keep in for just a little while longer because this gives us a little bit of centralization, but now we're kind of at the end of where we can push up via centralization, so we're going to switch to the very strong Spanish one of the Merindad division, giving us a minus proximity cost, which is very good. That pairs quite nicely with the fact that we have minus proximity cost off of all this centralization we've gotten as well. And then also, if we are going to flip Sunni, which we are going to prep to be able to do, we are going to want more religious tolerance, and so it is going to be important that we eventually start pushing humanist. And so to that end, we will want to ask for another law change, and then change either the censorship. Limited censorship is kind of okay, so we'll probably stick with this. But then air religion in particular, we will want to swap on over to any religion, giving us more tolerance of heathen beliefs and also a trend towards the value of humanist. So now we're just a little bit off of where we can push humanist, and with the cabinet action we can comfortably push humanist. I think naval is as far pushed as we can get, 31. Maybe if we swap over the cabinet action now, because we don't have the centralization trend anymore, we can start pushing naval values. So just taking a look, yep, so we could get up to 0.39, which is what we'll look to do, and then maybe we push humanist, maybe we do something like push innovative because we already have a trend in that direction, something like that. And then we see that the nobles are kind of upset with us. We probably should have led with this instead of doing this at the end, but we want from them anyways nobility controlled serfdom. It will kill our some of our trend towards free subjects, but I don't even think we want to go max free subjects anyways, and this will help to make them happy again. And so they don't have a revolt, this type of thing, which is a little bit inconvenient. It goes after our prosperity. And that's a pretty good come up in terms of the parliament we're getting here, but we do have to do that big spend, and so we will go for it. Hopefully the prices are collapsed here. Yeah, so they're cheaper than what they are base, so we will be building in a ton of urban areas. I do think we will have even cheaper buildings over here, though, and so I guess we will be building in the Sevilla market a little bit more. That's why there's a difference in price, because the prices are more collapsed in Sevilla, so it's a little bit better / more timely for us to build there. We are not quite ready to move the capital, so even though we get the event from Itinerant Court where we get the choice, we will choose not to move the capital. Also, our leader is just absolutely cracked. 97 war, real insane, very, very strong. Although I do think admin just generally is going to be one of the better ones to have, because it's going to give you crown power, and it will also... well, mainly because it gives you crown power. Although I do think Diplo's pretty good as well. State satisfaction equilibrium is a very nice modifier to be having. So he will be our new king. We will make sure to put him in charge of the navy. That way we gain crown power. And let's just double check. Does he have kids of an age? No, he doesn't have kids of an age. Tragic. So this is maybe the downside of allying England specifically. He's getting pulled into the 100 Years' War over and over and over again. We might just sit tight and see / let our subjects do some work. This should help them out a pretty solid amount anyways. I think we'll take the stab here, because the stab is a little bit expensive. Although I think that we don't need to pay quite as much for the slider, but we will hold off on the mobilization, and if things are looking a little bit weird, we will mobilize. There's plenty of forts in between us and England, and we know that it's pretty convenient, but England is very likely to give us stuff in this war. It's just we don't really want anything, I guess, except for stuff along this coast we would maybe be interested in, but we're probably not going to be getting that from them. So we almost forget to build settlements following the Black Plague, which would have been a little bit loose. We'll also build these in our subjects. A very, very important building is going to give 1% population growth and 1% migration attraction. Really, really good for increasing the pops following the Black Plague, because a lot of buildings or a lot of locations get depopulated, and then once they're depopulated enough, once they're under 50 or under 5% of their max pop potential, then you can spam a whole bunch of settlements. And so we also will take care not to urbanize over these, and this is really going to help out pop growth, specifically in the Sevilla market down here in the south. Alright, so during that war, we did have a little bit of an annoying thing happen, which was that our one location subject had a rebellion that had popped in that location, and there's no interaction for us to be able to stop this, so they popped out as independent because we can't intervene for the first 12 months, and just by virtue of our subject not having any locations after the rev popped, the other guy just auto-won. So, a little bit unfortunate, but we'll just be able to subjugate him later for cheap, so that won't be too much of an issue. The nice thing now, though, that we've concluded that war with France, is we got a ton of favors from that war. And so that's going to be very useful because we are going to be using those for a variety of things. We can ask for money if they get a little bit more money and get 1,000 ducats, so that's nice. They don't have enough money for us to do that, but more importantly for now, we can force them to isolate from allies and isolate from Aragon, which is going to break that alliance, and so now we can declare on them, and they will be much, much softer. We can even co-CB Portugal here, although if we do that, I do think here's our claimed province on Girona, which I think is up here, and so we still do have a claim up here, so it's nice that we had two, or actually rather three, subjects that were developing claims so that we could do this. I don't think it's worth us taking the stab hit. If we insult Portugal, it would only be 10 stab, but I think we'll go with something like that. We'll see if... Nah, we can't really go for Provence either with the co-CB, just kind of clicking through and seeing what we can do. Don't really want to do any of these co-CBs, so we'll just go for a war on Aragon here now, and so that should suit us pretty well. We are a lot stronger than them, and so we should be able to make some stuff happen. I think we probably will grab one or two things off of Portugal, but not a whole lot because it's going to cost a lot of extra infamy, and just maybe at this point we take the market off of them because what we wanted to do was have the market be owned just by us, but also have a subject that owned the entire market province, other than the market capital. And if we release the subject, it releases the whole province. And so now the subject's released, now we can just transfer them individual locations. So that works out well for us. We're not going to ignore corruption. We're going to get rid of it. And this war should be pretty straightforward for us. We'll just split the armies. We'll have half go towards Portugal, half go towards Aragon. And I'm pretty sure it's more than enough to handle each of them. So we take a little bit of a nibble out of Portugal here, looking to release that as a country. We get an interesting situation where Morocco ends up picking that up, Valencia, so we'll probably peel that back off of Morocco and maybe try and do something. I think that we would like to have an additional location to feed them from Aragon, so maybe we go with something like this, and then we will be going for finishing off this province for Catalonia, grabbing this and releasing Mallorca, grabbing all of this for Cagliari, because it looks like they don't have claims anymore. Their claims got bricked at some point, and so we're just looking to get them the full province down there. Also very nice, there is going to be silver and iron, so pretty valuable locations as well, and they are in areas that are far from the capital of Aragon here in Girona, so that means we will not have to pay as much both antagonism and a war score in order to grab that, and we are looking to just kind of play a little bit of a small ball type of thing. Arborea will not be able to join a coalition against us. Aragon and Portugal will both have with us truces, and by the time the truce is up, they should get under 50, and so by doing this in this way, we are avoiding having any sort of coalitions, for at least for now, because you can't get allies, generally speaking, very easily if you have coalitions, so we kind of want to avoid those, and this is what we will be going for here. And so we will peace out and have a nice little extra bit of land. Kind of not really doing it in a very border gorish way, but that is mainly because it's a little bit more efficient to do it this way. So for tech, I think we are going to go for the legislative efficiency, which we talked about earlier. Also, regarding the economy, we are consistently now earning over 100 ducats. We don't even have Parliament increased max tax here. We don't want to tax the tribes, though. And so things are coming up quite strongly. Not really ready yet to move the capital, so we are continuing to urbanize up here. Eventually we want to move it down here, but we're going to do a lot of prep before we move it down here. Part of this is making sure we have enough sand to be able to build more roads, because our roads, we have roads down here, but not anywhere near what we have up here. Really have a lot of infrastructure up here. Also, getting the bridges up here, which is going to be nice for control, which we wouldn't really be doing if we were planning on moving the capital down anytime soon, because otherwise the bridges wouldn't be very useful for some time. I think it's probably going to be at least another 20 years before we want to move the capital. Really, when we integrate Granada, this is maybe going to be a very significant breakpoint, because then we will be able to get a lot of control to like some of these really juicy RGOs here, and I do think there's quite a lot of pops up here as well for us to maybe work with. As it stands now, we don't really want to heavily urbanize in these locations anyways, because they do have the settlements still working, and if you urbanize, it's going to brick the settlement, so we're still like in prep mode down in the southern kind of portion here. Also, we don't have the payoff of you know, south of North Africa really yet, where being able to project control down here, if we were to have, you know, Fez in this location and a like kind of an urban base down here, this would be really valuable, but we currently don't have that yet, so it's just not worth it. Not enough pops, not enough going on, as attractive as Sevilla is. We are building a few more boats here and there, and we are getting a little bit of maritime, but it's not going to be anything too notable. What is kind of nice about having our ruler, though, being in charge of the navy, is he often will, especially if he's doing battles, roll an admiral trait, which is one of the ways in which we were able to push a little bit more naval. One of the things is ruler has an admiral trait, and if we have him in charge of the army, he might roll an army trait, which would do the opposite effect, which would kind of, to some extent, like brick us from our ability to push naval. So we just need another 9 pushing, and then we can go for some things that are valuable in terms of our privileges, where we can go for, scrolling down, I do think it's unlocked in this age, Harbor Administration, which will give us progress towards naval and kind of lock us in on naval, and will help us with proximity through port and monthly dev growth. So that's kind of something on the horizon that we are interested in getting. We do finally get professional armies here in the capital, and banking is soon to follow in just a few months. We're probably going to push for banking first, but this is already pretty nice for us. And we also have some universities that we get via events and this type of stuff, which is going to be nice for spreading it a little bit more, getting some institution growth, or quite a big institution growth. So a lot of these places with universities will get it. You can see that this place is already lit up a little bit, and they will get these things ahead of time, and then they will spread to locations near them. So it is quite nice for being able to get these things a little bit faster. I'm thinking that we don't need to research through the entire line that we've selected before we could embrace either professional armies or banking, but maybe we do anyways, just so we can avoid a little bit of a stab hit, and because generally speaking what we want is at the end of our tree, so we don't want to by the time we get as far down as like here or something, it's maybe worth it to go for the legislative efficiency anyway. So one thing we have been trying to do is make sure that we have at least one guy from the burghers inside of our cabinet, and the reason why we now have kind of achieved, which is we want to be able to roll support a mercantile cabinet, which will improve the guy who is the burgher, but also it'll progress us 10 towards plutocracy. Now, to be fair, we haven't really gotten as much plutocracy as we should have to make this useful, because it's only after you exhaust your trend that it's really, really useful, but it'll be a nice little bump. We just started trending towards plutocracy with our cabinet action, going from like 0 break even to moving towards plutocracy, so this is going to be a nice little gain here for us. We don't have anything we necessarily really want to go for in like the near future, other than we just would like to pass this. Kind of get a little bit of a low roll here with tax exemption, but serfdom movement, we're kind of okay. Sinking our free subjects trend. Free subjects is like one of the few values where getting like the maximum amount in it is maybe not good. We're happy to get a little bit of prosperity, a little bit of pop promotion speed. These things go a long way, and then we don't necessarily want to push it too much because of this trend. I think that we have enough prosperity that we can kind of fully push all of this, especially because we start off with we do start off with, is it this one? Yeah, the unique tech, which smooths everything out. Without this, we'd be getting considerably less, so us really pushing free subjects is not something we care about, and so this means we can throw the value and go serfdom whenever we have this as our thing, so this will be a fine enough roll, and then that's probably all we click. That's probably just our parliament there. We want to pass this, and we could go for additional taxes. Don't really need it. We could go for a CB. I think we are having one brewing anyways. Ooh, That's a bit of a development, eh? Morocco allies with Aragon. That will actually probably overall make things easier for us, because we could just fight them both at the same time, and then we could use the CBs we're getting on Aragon instead of needing to wait for our subjects to make a Morocco CB, because so far they haven't been very successful in that regard, despite having claims. So that should be pretty nice and straightforward for us. So we are building a bunch of bailiffs in the north here, and a big part of why is we get this unique building, Brethren of the Marsh in San Vicente de la Barquera, and hopefully I pronounced that right, and it gives the monthly sailors control. Throttles how many sailors you have, right? So here we see we're getting minus 80% monthly sailors, and so by adding this, we will be getting additional proximity. Currently we have 0 proximity in this location, and so what this will do, it'll add 15 control, and so by doing this we can get more sailors. We're also building ships out of here. It does give discounted ship cost, I believe. Or ships just tend to be more cheap up here, because in almost all of our runs we're building ships out of up here. And so the bailiffs will do a little bit of work here. Eventually we can maybe get some proximity just via roads, but I did want to throw down the bailiffs. Maybe we don't need this one. That bailiff's kind of not on a very good territory here, and maybe we should be pushing the roads all the way down. But more than happy to have the bailiff there. Oh, actually, you know what? This is maybe good enough, and the roads are full cheap, so let's actually just push roads down into these locations here for the purposes of getting more sailors, because currently our only sailor building, we have 2 sailor buildings, and sailor buildings are just generally not that accessible in the early game unless you have something special going on. Okay, we have a fishing village, which gives 1 sailor, and would need to be subsidized, so we would lose money on that, and then we also have the wharf, which gives 1 sailor. Eventually, with banking, we will get docks, which gives 16 sailors. Now, we have 1 dock, because we start with a dock, but we can't build any. See, we start with a dock down here. And to be fair, we've taken Lisbon's dock, and so that is a significant amount of increase in sailors, and so that is something. But I think we have, like, 0 control there, so that actually doesn't do anything. So that's kind of why we're doing this, and maybe a little bit of a play pattern that's kind of unique to Castile is the consideration of these, like, starting buildings that you get for... I don't think... That is Guy, a relatively good explorer, but we're not going to go with that. Getting these unique buildings and playing around them, at least at game start, so that you could do a little bit more with your sailors. Also, we are now exploring these kind of territories. We do want to be able to start settling them, and so this is going to be nice. We're making enough money that we can kind of afford these types of things. It's around 10 per sale. I think it's really trappy to go for exploration really early, just at like game start with Castile and Portugal, because you can't even really get things that started anyways, and so I do think waiting until you're maybe making at least 10 times what the cost is of the expedition or the exploration. Here you can see we're paying 9 in exploration costs before doing it is probably a reasonable sort of strategy. That way you don't kind of fail to spin up the economy because you're spending so much on this exploration and colonization that's not going to pay out for some time. We get our first upgrade to city coming in. There's not really too many locations we can upgrade to city. We can with Bourgeois, but this is going to allow us considerable more levels, and it's in a relatively nice spot. We have production bonuses towards from the wood on the dyes, and also from the wool on both the Spinners Guild and the Tailors Guild, and so the upgrade to city will allow us to build, I think, 5 more levels on each of these, which is going to improve our throughput or our output from economies of scale in terms of production efficiency. This will go up to 6.2%. That'll become more profitable, and it is maintaining a closeness to the capital, and it's going to get plus 5 control, which is also going to be nice by virtue of being a city. We can maybe take a look at what the city upgrade looks like here, just to kind of briefly show it off, but we are getting additional supported levels, additional pop promotion speed, max control. There's 5 5 for a town pop capacity, which will help the city grow a whole lot better as well. And the extra construction and construction speed is pretty nice to have. Currently, in terms of how many cities we have the 4 that we started off with, plus the 1 coming in Sevilla, Cordoba, and Toledo here. Toledo's kind of in a weird spot though, because it's far away from where we want to put a capital. We could put a capital like in Madrid, like the historic capital, but I really don't think that this is the best location for it. I think we want to be closer to the coast and push naval. Alright, with England, we have a bunch of favors, and anytime we have a lot of favors, we want to think about improving culture if we have any intention of conquering them in the near future, but we don't with England. We're probably not going to take clay with a bunch of English pops, and so what we're going to be using this for, in addition to us using it to isolate from allies, is we're going to ask them for money, and this amount scales with our income. And our income is probably really pulling ahead of England. England is generally a slow starter for the AI because they start with a law that's kind of nasty that you need to deslot, but then it's good later and you want to reslot it in. It gives negative crown power and extra max tax. Just kind of a little bit of comparison in terms of tax base, you know, we have roughly double the size of their economy currently. And when we do this, when we go and we take and ask them for money, we are going to, they probably don't have enough money on hand to really pay for this, and so they're going to take loans. And as a consequence of the loans, they are very likely to start death spiraling, especially if we do this multiple times. They have to have some amount of money for us to be able to do this, but you can force them to take loans. And so we're going to do that, and we are going to check and see if we can take on their debt eventually. Let's see if they, at the end of this month, do have any debt in England, and look, almost that entire amount is now in debt, and so that is going to be very negative to them. We could give our crown prince control over the Asturias. He is incompetent. This would help his administrative and military ability, or we can gain progress towards... Actually, we don't want progress towards decentralization. We were, like, looking at eyeing the plutocracy like that, but we don't want decentralization progress. But now, England, even though we're allying them, we are, like, sapping their strength. They are a potential rival in the future, and it's really nice that we can, you know, force them into debt, and then this way they'll probably stall out and really fail to like have their proper come up as a result of the debt, because this will often really decrease their crown power, and this is something the AI kind of struggles to deal with, is the debt. So that's probably going to bury them to some extent. To another extent, Aragon's already buried, so let's dig a little bit deeper. We're going to declare on them. We're going to co-CB Portugal, I think. We are going to do claims on province on Girona, and then we are going to co-CB Portugal, except we don't have a diplomat. Once we have a diplomat, we're going to go for this war. Should be really straightforward and easy, especially because France is taking a bite out of them right now, and us being able to co-CB Portugal here, with, for whatever reason, that not costing extra stability, despite us having good relations with Portugal, this is going to be really nice for us because we are going to get a really big discount from claims on province, and so we will be able to take quite a few locations from Portugal and start, you know, kind of cleaning up Iberia. We don't want to annex anyone except for Granada, though, at least right now, because we are trying to maybe eventually flip Muslim, and so we only want to integrate Muslim pops. We have to get 40%, at least with the standard game settings, you have to get 40% of your pop into the other religion, so we do need 40% Sunni, and that is a bit of an ask, and so we don't want to integrate any non-Sunni nations, at least at this point in the game. So no one joined against Aragon, or with Aragon rather, so we just got kind of a carve-up going for the coast first. This Girona is where their capital is. We kind of like the capital there because that makes it cheaper for us to grab stuff because they have low control everywhere else. And it's not a huge discount, but every little bit is nice. In terms of antagonism, we're still avoiding it for the most part. We got a little bit on France, and so we'll improve relations with them and look to get rid of that, just so that we can maintain our allies in both Naples and England. At least for now, I think that this will be fine. We're probably going to look to get royal marriages with them if we can. We know that they can have female rulers, which is nice for, or I'm pretty sure it's nicer for being able to pull people into a personal union and make those types of moves, and really kind of starting to clean up Iberia here. where we maybe have 2 more wars with Aragon. We don't want to subjugate Aragon because annexing them is basically impossible at this point, because we have mounting recently declared war modifiers, which just stack more and more and more, so it'd be hundreds of years. So we will eventually at some point full annex them, and so that's what we're going for. Or feed them to our subjects, more like, is kind of what's going on. We will continue to get CBs here from Catalonia on them, and so these are going to be the last bits of lands that we look to take from them. So the slow urbanizing process is continuing. We are choosing one location in a lot of provinces, or are going to start doing this, where we are going to urbanize it mainly for the purposes of building a granary there, because population growth, let's kind of take a little bit of a hover here, population growth is going to be sped up by having large food storages in provinces, and it is going to be easy to store food if we have granaries. And so one rural location per province, because it's food storage in a province, not in a location, not in the market, is going to be nice. And so we are kind of coming through and we're like, hey, where it has a lot of, pops that we can maybe make use of, has an RGO that's maybe not so good that we like building over, and doesn't have, terrain that is pretty antagonistic towards increasing development. And then we find a location and then we're like, oh, okay, we can plop this down here, and we're going to be doing quite a bit of that. Actually, I didn't see if the price there was okay. We're also making sure that the price is relatively collapsed. Yeah, so we're a little bit off on the lumber, but the lumber is kind of being a little bit sticky anyways, and so we're looking to do quite a bit of that. Also, towards that end, we are going to start building more villages, or villages kind of like at all, and specifically we want the farming village, because this does also give plus 100 food capacity, and we are really going to be looking to push those in here, let's not sort by that. We are going to be looking to push those specifically in areas where we don't anticipate upgrading. So generally speaking, wool, I think we're going to avoid upgrading to urban areas, because we get so many bonuses from wool. So what we could do is we can look at wool locations and start pushing the farming villages. This will also generate us a lot more food as well, but food is not too much of a concern. We do have one province that's like a dedicated food province, where we're stacking food bonuses. This is so that the capital province doesn't get too out of hand in terms of food costs, and just keeps everything a little bit flat. But we are getting wheat here, which the RGO itself gives 8 food, and then we are also producing sheep, which produce food as well, 5 per unit, so this is maybe around 6 food, something like this. And then we're also having the farming villages, which gives percentage. We will actually need to subsidize these by the look of it, because they're not employing up, but that's fine. We will subsidize the farming villages as well, but they are producing cattle, more food. And also irrigation is giving us pop capacity, which helps population growth a little bit, and giving us some percentage food. So starting to push some of these things, because we do want to get more pop growth, and you have to be a little bit proactive about it. And we're starting to get what feels like a good amount of money. And so we are also going to be pushing the granaries and such as well in these locations. Granaries in the early game eat into your masonry a lot. And so in order to kind of support this, we are also going to need to build quite a bit of masonry. And so we are going to be pushing that in provinces specifically that have stone or clay, because these PMs are going to be good for that. So we're going to be doing all of that to help facilitate pop growth here, and try and facilitate pop growth a little bit more in Sevilla than up in the capital, because we do want to get enough pop here that we can start getting things done. We're also fighting France again, but not very actively. We got called into this war. We're for the most part standing on this +2 location and just looking to pick straggling armies and not really fight like these 16k stacks unless they want to come and bring it onto here. Just doing this for favors with England and to kind of weaken France, but not really trying to get anything out of it, because that would involve a lot more investment from us in terms of pops. We are also down here creating a CB on Morocco for a religious war, because our countries or our guys just are too slow about it. They're having too many difficulties. But what we're also going to do is we're going to keep in the spy network. And the main reason here for that is going to be that we want to go for stealing maps, because we want to discover Mali. And so we want to discover all of these locations down here so we can eventually trade with Mali. We don't have enough trade range now, but we're hoping to in the near-ish future. for research, we just pip professional armies. We're going to come in here and we are going to make a little bit of a beeline towards... we could go for crossbowmen, or we could go for men-at-arms. The men-at-arms will also give us the men-at-arms levies. Crossbowmen are, I think, just better regulars. Right now, the regulars just aren't very good in the first couple of ages, and so I think what we're going to do is we're going to push for men-at-arms, and then we will have a more amount of levies, and I do think these levies... I'm not sure if these levies will be stronger, because the stat line's basically the same, but they're an age later. I do think that there is an upgrade, but it's like opaque how that works, where the later age levies, because the primary way that regulars upgrade is they double the size of the unit. Levies don't double the size of the unit. It's going to be 1,000 each time, but I do think that they still get better even if you get the upgraded thing, but I'm not 100% sure or have a way of like confirming this, but we're going to go straight for men-at-arms here, and we're doing it mainly because we want the regular men-at-arms, and actually, mainly because we want the armory, and then this is right here. And then after this, we will make a bit of a decision whether or not we have banking, but I think we'll get military tactics either way. But whether or not we have banking, we'll make a decision on whether we want to push for the Hoofdnice and these types of things, or if we want to transition on over to banking after getting gunpowder here. So, after a little bit of reflection, I think that we want to accept the Andalusi culture more before we integrate them, and so I think we're going to actually cancel this integration. A little bit unfortunate to lose so much Diplo, but it's not like we are really pressured on the integration, and, you know, every 50 or so years, or 50 years I think is the cooldown for a subject, you can increase how much they approve of your culture, and I think that we do want to get this up to at least neutral before annexing them. It's a little bit cute, but we could start annexing them maybe in 20 years with the idea that in maybe 30 years before we finish annexing, but while we are currently annexing, we can go and improve cultural opinion with them again. But as you can see here, it's going to cost 2.4 cultural capacity to accept them, and we want to accept them, and we don't have anywhere near that capacity, so improving that will make things a little bit easier for us to go for that. Gonna go for a little bit of a smaller kind of peace deal on Morocco. This will keep their infamy or our antagonism on them relatively low, so it'll decay below 50, and so it'll just be Aragon above this threshold. And because the CB is a religious war CB, which is going to give us additional antagonism, this type of thing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple cores for Fez. We're going to take this for having the sound toll, because I guess that we need that one to finish out the sound toll. We're going to go for this to feed for Seuss. This is a core, this is not a core, so they'll do some integrating for us, and we're going to take Valencia back, in addition to taking a little bit of ducats and going for war reps. Just kind of a small little thing. Basically also zero investment on our part, because we just occupied this really quick. I think we had like 1 or 2 battles, lost almost no pops, and us kind of progressing the war and doing something much bigger would involve much more significant investment, and we could just come back in 5 years and do like a short little war again. Eventually what we're going to want to do though is take the Fez location and take Marrakesh, and then move the Fez market down to Marrakesh. And this, kind of just to piece this out real quick, this would move the entire market down, which would give a lot more breathing room to Sevilla. And also, I just think that geographically speaking, there's this big, huge clearing, so having a Marrakesh market there makes a lot of sense. It is moving it off of a river, which Fez currently has, but I don't think it's necessarily the biggest deal, because you'll have way more locations that are going to be benefiting from increased market access, I think, by moving it down a little bit, because otherwise, this southern portion tends to be a little bit of a dead zone that's not really that great. So this is probably something that we're not going to do this episode, but an adjustment that I do think is important for making Sevilla thrive, because we crowded Sevilla in 2 fronts, right? We crowded Sevilla by moving the Barcelona market down into the left a little, and then we moved this market down into the left a little, and so Sevilla is a little bit more crowded than it otherwise would be in vanilla. This kind of opens it up, and in all, what ends up happening is this area ends up getting a lot more market access, and then everything just shifts down slightly. So while we have enough war score to go for a full annex on Aragon, that would give us a pretty nasty amount of antagonism, and as it stands, I think we just do this in 2 wars instead of 1. We'll get to decay antagonism on all these guys. We're improving relations with France, Foy, and Pisa in order to make this a little bit so that we don't get coalition. We want to preserve the alliance with Naples and England. It's probably unnecessary at this point, but this is what we're going to go for in terms of the peace deal. We're going to go for one location over here, so when the Italian wars pop, we will have a location from which to a jumping off point for ourselves. And so this is just kind of a utility location. And then we will be feeding our vassals these locations here. You know, we have, like, this vassal's going to get these locations, and this this vassal's going to get this location. Valencia is going to get the rest of their province. This vassal's going to get this location. And so there will be plenty of room for them to integrate all of this, which is, the integration will also be smoother for all of our vassals if we don't just take this all in one war. And then this will go to one of these guys, I'm not sure which, but we will be poised to next war just fully annex the rest of Aragon, which might get us into a little bit of trouble with France. We'll try and maintain good relations with France so that we can keep the antagonism low, and so that there isn't any sort of coalition, because the coalition's going to brick as soon as we get this peace deal by virtue of the one person who is eligible we now have a truce with, which of course is Aragon. So that is going to be the state of affairs. We also have a truce with France from the war with England. So there is that as well. Portugal's a little upset with us, but that might be a good thing if we want to deck on Portugal in the near future. That way we don't take the stab hit from being above 50 relations. Alright, so we are about at the point where we can embrace this institution. We still have a little bit of progress on the current tech we're getting, but this is probably not going to be, it's probably not going to spread to any new lands or any new territories really too much, and we get more research speed by embracing the institution anyways, and so we have banking. Now, in particular, we want dock. This is kind of the big deal as it relates to our ability to propagate control navally, you know, all the way around this edge up to here. And so right now, currently as the proximity stands, we have decent proximity. We've been working on it. You know, we've been building roads, this type of stuff, just to show the road map mode. There's quite a bit of roads and also a bunch of roads around Sevilla. This is just to increase market access here, which will make all of the industries that we have been producing there, which is a little bit a lot more lucrative. But as it stands, when we get like max naval, we will be able to push control really well up to here. There's a couple of really good natural harbors up here, and even from Sevilla we can push over to there, and then we can also push you know, down into here when we start to grab more of this territory down here. And so really what we want is we want to be able to, ahead of time, before we move the capital, really start pushing this maritime presence. And so having it already established will be really useful. Also very nice that we can, from Lisboa and also from up here, really kind of get full propagation on almost all of this. And so our ability to kind of return to this upper market is going to be of Valladolid, is going to be much better once we kind of get to, or it's going to be nice because we have these places we can build in. We have the Lisbon here, and so we're not bricked by Portugal, as is kind of the case normally when you have Portugal in there and you don't have any of the territory. From here, I think that, let's go dock first. We will want to, the bark isn't super essential, because we do have our unique unit, but then on the next level we have Iberian Caravel, so I think this is going to be the next one we push for. And then we have probably, so we could go for this afterwards for the maritime presence, and we could go early Carrick to set ourselves up next age for being the naval hegemon. The naval hegemon, if I recall correctly, the way it works is for a area, you can improve the harbor capacity. And so this would be an interesting sort of idea as we kind of look at this, is there an area we would really like to improve the harbor capacity of? And Maghreb is actually insane. If we, you know, Sevilla to Maghreb, all of this, the harbor capacity, like plus 20%, we can get so much control down here if we do that. Wow, that would be a very good spot. So would Tunis over here, but in Iberia, not so much. Or none of those are looking absolutely enormous. So this is maybe an idea, but we just need Carracks before the next age, and that's another 50 years off, right? We're 50 years in, so we can put that aside for now, and we'll probably come to the other side of the tree, and then we have a couple things going on over here. So we have bureaucracy. Because we have so much prosperity, kind of as a result of what we have going on with Castile, we could actually go centralized really comfortable. The road building time is less important than the monthly progress towards centralization. That's going to be really nice. I think what we'll do is first we will go for the trade range. I think is there a trade range on this side of the tree? I don't think so. But trade range, I think if we get both the trade range techs, we should be able to trade down into Niani. Ooh. Niani being Mali / Western Africa, was oohing because I think that we could also just push for Thirst for Knowledge first. This is maybe reasonable, because I don't think... So with the dock, I don't think that we are quite at the annexation level that we have in Northern Africa for this to necessarily be a priority. But I think here's what we're going to do. We're going to go for the trade range first, and then we're going to go for the max literacy, and then we're going to go for Iberian Caravel in terms of sequencing a little bit differently here. And actually, we will sequence slightly differently. Before going for Caravel, we will go for Counting House, which is kind of one of the other big techs here. I don't like that the UI does that sometimes. If we click directly on the Counting House, it goes to try to build it, but we don't have it researched, so we obviously can't build it. But Counting House is very critical or very important because it gives plus crown power in locations. It has to be built in urban locations, and this allows us to really juice up our crown power quite a lot. We are well over 25, so we're not super in need of it. We're at 30 crown power, but this would help out a lot, and so it's generally speaking a very strong tech. Also, it creates good buy orders. The demand for paper, books, tools, this type of stuff, this stimulates industries that are relatively good, and so we're kind of happy to see that. I think after this we'll go bureaucracy into rag paper for the better PM for the paper that is cloth dependent, and we can make a lot cloth very, very lucratively because we have a huge advantage in the wool, and so that will be really nice for us for pushing onto the paper. And these are kind of the main techs, I think, that we really, really want out of this banking tree. There's obviously more techs that we care about. Protected harbors we are going to be interested in as we start to swap over to naval. But let's kind of summarize a little bit some of the things we've done. As with every opener, focused a lot on values. We pushed 74 towards control, which I think is pretty good. Free subjects pushed itself. We're currently pushing plutocracy, which I think is reasonably good, and aristocracy would be really one we would maybe want to consider if we were trying to rumble with France a whole lot, and we could even fight France. This is maybe a reasonable thing. We have claims on France. I think we want to take out Aragon first, and we're kind of picking on people who are smaller than us. So taking out Aragon, taking out Portugal, and going for North Africa, I think are going to be our expand spots, especially radiating out from the capital is going to be the future capital of Sevilla. We have no business putting control into French lands. I mean, we can kind of get control over here to the coast, but there's not really any good natural harbors here. You have to come over to Nice to find the really good natural harbors, and then you're in Provence, not in France, and so maybe a little bit of a wash. For this run, a lot of what we've kind of talked about that's maybe been a little bit interesting or different is the fact that we're playing two markets. And so we kind of focused on this market first and ignored this market, and now we're kind of catching this market up in Sevilla and prepping it, and also, having some considerations towards pop growth, because really awkward that there's a ton of pop up here. There's maybe even an argument for deleting the market so that the pops can spread around a whole lot more, but I don't think that this is quite worth it. You can see that the pops are coming up quite steadily. They have a lot of population growth in a lot of these locations that still have the settlements, and a lot of the settlements are going away, and this is what happens. Once you get 10% of your maximum pop capacity, the settlement will go away, and so we have some pretty high populations in here, so that is we're going to have fairly good urban centers. Also, what we've been doing, and maybe haven't really pointed it out, we've put cathedrals in a line here with the hope of eventually, because there's a river here, having a bunch of pound lock canals along here, which give a 5% proximity reduction. And this is another tech. We're not like rushing it because it's not going to be that important for a little bit, but it is a building that gives proximity cost reduction. And you know, Castile is pretty good at that. We have several. We already talked about the flavor, but they're just such powerful laws, like this division here with the 10% proximity cost. Also, us getting just kind of free tax efficiency and wool output. There's another one in our distribution of power. Just a lot of stuff that's really helping out a lot. But that's kind of our Castile start. I think in terms of ideas, we've talked about where we're planning on expanding, that we're flipping Sunni. We have started to colonize a little bit as well. The colonization is relatively cheap compared to the exploration. We've also started stealing maps to get down into Mali to eventually trade there, pull up a whole bunch of gold, and really benefit from a big trade income. But those are kind of the things we would see in the next 50-ish years, probably fully grabbing all of Aragon and Portugal and also big chunks of North Africa, while still maintaining the relatively low antagonism that we've been doing for some time. I think it's doable, maybe looking to fight France, and then the Italian wars, maybe kind of playing a little bit of small ball in there, because we do have a foothold location, and we would love to take specifically Genoa and Venetia, any sort of market capital, so also Tunis, and here is on our radar in terms of what we would be going for, and just trying to control the Mediterranean trade. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing, hit the notification bell, and if you wanted to support the channel and you've not yet purchased the game, you can buy the game from the website using our code GENERALIST in all caps. This won't give you a discount, but it will send 12% of the sale our way. Just make sure you check, if you're not in USD, that the price is the same on Steam and on the web store. And also, other creators are going to have a code, so if you wanted to support another creator, you can feel free to check around and see who has a code and who doesn't. Anyways, other than all that, have a good one. Bye-bye now.